Hello and welcome to Mathghamhain Morsels, episode 34 already. Man, this is getting up there. This is again going to be in a Sanguine Start series, and I'm going to be making a Mayo, or Aioli. An Aioli is really just a fancy Mayo. And mine is actually going to be a Japanese Mayo Aioli. You get the picture. So, first off, what's the difference between a Japanese mayo and a normal mayo? Well, Japanese mayo has a richer flavor to it, and it's because it has more egg to everything else than a standard mayo does. More egg yolk. It only uses egg yolk. Doesn't use any other part. It's just egg yolk. So, to make a normal mayo, you do one large egg yolk that it has to start at room temperature. Then you do half a teaspoon of Dijon mustard, 3/4 cup olive oil or vegetable oil, or you can combine those. But those will be divided. You'll see how I add the oil in this. Then you'll get the idea. Some vinegar, some lemon juice, and the vinegar, you'll either use a white vinegar or cider vinegar normally, but you can use any vinegar that you want. And then pepper if you like pepper. I don't add any pepper. The difference between that and a Japanese mayo is the Japanese mayo has more egg yolk in it. So I'm going to be using 2 egg yolks. I already have one in here. It popped not too long ago, unfortunately, and I have my Dijon mustard in here already, which I have about 1 teaspoon of Dijon mustard. You'll use a more mild oil in this one typically, so you'll use like a canola oil. I'm going to use olive oil because I want more flavor. Then in this one right here, I have the other seasonings that are going to be thrown in, which are about half a teaspoon of salt. You can use kosher, sea salt, or if you use table salt, use about 1/4 of a teaspoon of table salt, or half a teaspoon of the other salts. 1 teaspoon sugar. If you like it sweeter, add more, but that's entirely personal preference. And then a 1/4 teaspoon of either dashi powder, powdered umami, or MSG. Any of those will work. And you'll use rice wine vinegar rather than a white or apple cider. And then you'll also use fresh lemon juice. I'm instead going to be using lime juice because it'll play nicer with the flavors that I'm going to be putting in this. So first off, I already separated 1 yolk. There's a bunch of different ways that you can separate yolk. And it depends on which method you feel most comfortable with. So you can either separate it by dancing it between the 2 halves of the shell. So you would crack your egg open and just kind of pour it back and forth between the 2 halves of the shell, letting the white run off. I unfortunately cracked the yolk in this. Normally you don't crack the yolk. I ended up cracking the yolk a little bit. So I'm just going to pour that straight in. Another method is you crack the egg into a bowl like this, and then once it's in the bowl, get any bottle. I had a bottle of water that I drank not too long ago. Cleaned out the top, and all you do is you squeeze it, you put it down over top of the yolk. You don't press down on the yolk, just let the rim of the bottle make contact, and then you let it slowly return to its normal shape, and then glob it into bowl that you're going to use for making your mayo. I'm going to be using a little gadget here. You can use a bowl and whip it by hand. You can use a food processor. You can use a blender. A bunch of different options for how to do this. But it'll start the same regardless of which version you're making. And that is, you want to process the egg yolk and the mustard together. So let me get this locked together. There's going to be a loud noise as I get this going. So you want your your egg and Dijon mustard to be blitzed together, and it'll just be a fairly runny consistency because there's nothing else added to it yet. At this point, you're going to want to start adding additional ingredients. So, if you're using a food processor or a blender, you're going to want to pour a small amount of oil in at a time while it's running, just a very slow drizzle. What I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be, unfortunately, splashing a bit of this in, and then I'm going to run my little gadget again, and then add some more, splash some more in, and then run my little gadget again. And I'm just going to keep doing that until it gets to the right consistency for me to move on. You don't want to add all of the oil at once. You want it to be a nice, slow, gradual addition. So there's that bit of oil added in. And then going to add another splash of oil. Get this locked back in place. There's that. And you want to add about 1/4 cup of oil slowly like this. And like I said, if you're doing this in a blender or food processor, just keep it going on a good speed and drizzle it in as you go. While it's running, you don't have to stop it running and then add more in and then stop it running and add more in. Nope, just keep it going all in one go, and you'll end up with the right consistency. For me, I'm doing something small enough that I can lift it up and show what this is looking like to you guys as it goes. So you can see it's getting fairly creamy looking, but still has a good long way to go. So I'm going to take that off again, and like I said, you can see that it's kind of becoming not gelatinous, but emulsifying, becoming nice and thick. And just keep on adding a little bit at a time. Probably with the next 2 additions or so, I'll be ready to start adding my other ingredients into this. And as you can see, it's looking rather nice. Go. So, as I said, I'm going to be making an aioli rather than just a mayo. And the difference between aioli and mayo is, well, in the name. So, aioli has more stuff added to it than just a mayo. Aioli actually means garlic in oil. So, an aioli, of course, has garlic mixed in, and it typically has a good amount of garlic mixed in. I have a couple different types of garlic I'm going to be mixing in. Surprise, surprise. A sanguine video with a number of different types of garlic, say it ain't so. But I'm going to be adding in a nicely, freshly roasted garlic, which I've already kind of smashed up. I'm going to be adding in a bit of smoked garlic. And I'm going to be adding in a bit of black garlic, of course, because I absolutely love those flavors. So, at this point, I'm going to add in the dry seasoning. So this is the normal Japanese mayo seasoning, as I said earlier. And then I'm also going to add in some of the additional seasonings. So add in my garlic, as well as I'm going to be throwing in the roasted garlic, as I said, some lime zest, and I'm going to be making this a saffron aioli because I'm going to be using this on my chicken sandwiches that I'm having for dinner. And saffron and garlic and lime go really amazing on fried chicken sandwiches. I'm going to add in another splash of oil to incorporate everything that I just added. And here's this. Just need to get this to lock. There we go. So let me kind of give this a bit of a shake and wiggle to make sure that everything gets incorporated throughout. And there's a couple more of these blitzes, so I have plenty of time to make sure everything gets worked in nicely. But you can already see a massive change in the texture and just appearance in general. So I'm going to add in some more oil. That will be more than enough to splash in now. And then I'm also going to be adding some of my rice vinegar. And this I'm probably going to be adding about the whole amount of rice vinegar all in one go. Unlike the oil, this doesn't really need to be poured in slow. But you can pour it in slow while it's still working if you're using a food processor or blender that has a feeding hole. And that will work beautifully. And then going to add in my lime juice. And rather than busting out my little lime juicer. I'm just going to squeeze the crap out of this lime, and that will be good enough. So again, going to give this a shake, give it a mix. Make sure that this ends up blending right. And let me take that off and let you guys see what it looks like on the inside. Looks fairly nice. Let's give that a taste. I'm definitely getting the lime. The saffron will kind of mature as it's in here and let the flavor bloom a little bit. But I'm getting the lime, I'm getting those amazing garlics, and it is a nice, thick, and creamy aioli. Oh man, that is good. And the salts that I used for this were a combination of different salts. I used my Durango wood smoke salt. You can use a standard salt for all of these. I just felt like being a bit fancy with it. No surprise there for those that have viewed my videos consistently. So I used some applewood, some Durango wood, and a bit of alder wood smoke salt. So this also has a nice smokiness to it, which again really will complement the chicken sandwiches that I'm going to serve this on. So I will be back once I've let this mature a little bit in my refrigerator, and once I have my chicken sandwiches ready, and I'll show you guys what this spreads like after that, and let you guys know how it impacts the flavor of the chicken sandwich. So I'll see you guys shortly. Okay, welcome back. So here we are at my desk once again. As you can see, I have one sandwich already made. The other one, I'll show you what I did. So here's the mayo that we made. It's a little bit more yellow now. That's because it had a bit of time to bloom, as I said, which is just allowing the flavors to marry together a little bit more. And that saffron came out a bit more than it was when it first got made. I just have some nice toasted buns here. So taking a good amount of the wonderful aioli that we made, slathering it on both the top and bottom, and then I'm going to throw on, this is just already kind of packed together a little bit, it's the fried chicken that I made for this, provolone cheese, a bacon weave, and more provolone cheese. And there's the chicken sandwich. So let's give this a taste, and I'm going to pay particular attention to the aioli that we made, since that was the point of this video. So the aioli, straight away, you get a nice creaminess to the entire sandwich, with just that unctuous double yolk flavor of the originally Japanese mayo that was then turned into an aioli, blending together into that lime zest and juice. That floral note of the saffron coming out with just a nice, strong garlic backbone. Mm. This is one of those things that can really heighten a dish ridiculously. Just like the homemade whipped cream. Bumps up a dessert beautifully. So does this aioli on this chicken sandwich. And you can use it for anything that you would use an aioli for. One of the things that's really tasty to do, that sounds a bit weird to a lot of people, is you can use a mayo or aioli to give not only a nice flavor to steak, but make it so it sears even better. Because this is just fat, a bit of vinegar, and egg. So you marinate a steak in some of this, pull it out, wipe a bit off, not all of it, but most of it off, and then sear it up. The added protein from the eggs, and the added fats from that egg yolk, and the added fat from the oil that you used in this, just really give you an amazing crust on your piece of meat. And all the flavors that you threw into this come out wonderfully as well. But yeah, that's how you make a mayo, a Japanese mayo, and an aioli, since I told you each part where it differs. Of course, you can add pepper if you want. I never add pepper. You just add pepper at the same time that you add all the other seasonings that you're throwing in. But give this a go. Have you made your own aioli before? If so, let me know what you put in it. If not, try this one out. Make this the something new that you've never tried. Doesn't have to be this exact one. You can adapt the flavors however you want. But making an aioli, that's difficult to say right in one go. You're something new this week. If you have, try a different flavor combination. See if it works out. Just experiment. Have fun. Try different herbs, spices, seasoning, whatever. Explore your food. And with that, I'm going to let you guys go because I'm going to scarf down my sandwiches here. And I will talk to you all later.